Well, welcome. Tonight, we're going to talk to one of the key groups of people that let us sleep at night. The people who run towards problems so we can run away from them. It's one of the groups of people, along with the police department, that you don't want to think you'll ever use. You hope you'll never use them, but when you need them, God bless them for being there. Why don't we start with an introduction?
Well, good evening, Al. My name is Mark Nelson. I'm the Fire Chief and Emergency Management Director for the town. I've been in this role since May of 2020. Started in Milford. This is my hometown. I still live here with my wife and daughter. And 1996 was my first full-time year in Milford. So time flies.
Seems like 5 years have gone by real fast.
It has been a blur, to be honest, a blur. So, but I really enjoy it, and I'm very fortunate to be here.
Well, we're fortunate as a town to have you. I didn't envy you when you stepped into TUI Rev 2's shoes, because after TUI Rev 1 and TUI Rev 2, saying that's a hard act to follow, but you filled those shoes and expanded them.
They were great chiefs. Chief Taddy also, he hired me. So between those three chiefs, I certainly learned a lot. And now I have a great deputy, so it comes kind of full circle. And yeah, so every day is a challenge, but I think
We just
they
have
will
to
live up
work on
that.
your props. Every time budget season comes and police budget comes up, Robbie shows up with his gun. I keep saying to you and your assistant, our deputy chief, you got to have an axe or something for effect.
Yeah, we tend to try and kill you with kindness. How's that instead?
Now, fire department, how much time of all your resources is really dedicated towards firefighting versus other activities?
So medical response for us is over 70% of our incidents. Fires are unpredictable. We don't know when they're going to occur. So what we do is we prepare as best we can with the staffing, try and plan so that we are prepared when that does occur, that we have an adequate response. And that's really the key. We're an insurance policy, right? So I can't tell you when the next fire will be, but I can tell you that we're answering roughly 6,000 calls a year, or about 16 a day.
I was going to say it's close to 20 a day.
Right, and it fluctuates. It fluctuates, sometimes less, sometimes more. It all depends. And the staff, the line and the staff, right? The on-duty crew, they're busy. And the administrative personnel, they're also busy, right? Because I have 2 fire prevention lieutenants. I have an administrative captain and a deputy chief. And so there's the administrative side and the operational side, and both are very busy.
But now, if it's 30%, that's still 2 or 3 fire issues a day.
Absolutely, right. So we're answering alarms, right? Carbon monoxide alarms, fire alarm activations, sometimes sprinkler activations, an assortment of fires, hazardous materials, vehicle accidents. All of that plays in.
Well, I recently had an accident on Purchase Street where my heart decided to stop beating for a while, and I ran over a wall. Within, it seemed like a minute, Engine 1 was right there with a full staff. Amazed me how quick the response was.
Right. The police, fire, and EMS response in this town, I'm biased, but it's second to none. And we all work as one team. It's really, it's really an incredible thing. It's not like that everywhere. So we have a great relationship with our other first responders, and we're able to give what we believe is a really good service.
Now, it seems like, and it could be my naivete, that the firefighters do all the work on an emergency call, and then the bus shows up, the ambulance shows up, and drives the person to the hospital.
It's kind of, It's tough to say who's doing more work, but I can tell you that the ambulance service has the paramedics. They're able to do the advanced skills, the advanced care, and again, it's teamwork. Great team. We help. You know, we're a licensed emergency first responder service, so we're able to do some basic life support skills that maybe other services aren't able to do, which is great for patient care. But then we work hand in hand with the paramedics. We can't do paramedic interventions.
Oh, so that's the big reason of having the ambulance.
That and also we don't have a transport component, so we contract that out to a private provider, and they bring the patients to the hospital. So again, we don't do more work than they do. We just work as a team. If you were to compare a neighboring community, they might send a fire engine and an ambulance to a call. We send a fire truck with fire staff and the private ambulance. So it's just a little bit of a different model, but the same type of response.
Why do we use an engine, a fire truck, versus a rescue wagon?
Well, right now, because we can get into a little bit about staffing. So at the Spruce Street Fire Station downtown, we do run a rescue truck. At the Birch Street Fire Station, because of staffing, the way it's set up, we would need to take a fire engine because that would be we'd want to have the fire engine with us in case a fire was reported when we were on the road, right? So now we've transitioned just recently. We put a new rescue truck into service, and we kept the old one, and now we're doing what's called a cross staff. So at Birch Street, because the staffing was increased, and very appreciative of that, we've been able to do a lot more. Because that happened, we were able to run what we're calling Rescue 3 out of Birch Street on medical calls. So we're not sending a fire engine on medical calls out of Birch Street now.
Now, I was always under the impression you sent an engine because you wanted the crew to be together in case there was a fire. Is that still valid, or?
It is. So if I try and paint a picture. So at Spruce Street, the minimum staff there is, 4 firefighters and a captain, right? So 2 on the rescue truck, 3 on the engine. So that's true. We want to keep the engine crew together. The rescue truck runs to the initial call, the initial medical call, if it's a medical. And if there's a second medical call in that district, the engine goes. At Birch Street, when I started, it was a 2-person station at minimum. Now we're a 4-person station at minimum. That's a big change. So that allows us flexibility. So if 2 firefighters respond to a medical call out of Birch Street in the rescue truck, I still have 2 personnel back to respond to a fire and meet that rescue truck at another incident.
So the people at the rescue truck could finish their work there and then drive over and meet the engine, and you got a full staff again.
Right. They won't leave the patient
Right.
until there's a transfer of care done with the paramedics. But yes, it gives us more flexibility.
And now we'll talk about toys later, but an engine, it's north of $1 million now?
When we purchased Engine 5, which is our newest engine, I believe the price of that in 2020 was $665,000.
That's what I remember.
It is now north of 1.2 million. And I don't have an explanation except for maybe supply chain and labor shortage, and I don't know. But we're not, well, the fire service isn't immune to it. I mean, everybody's dealing with the
I
same
have
thing.
an explanation. It's because they can.
It might be a good answer.
I mean, at the end of the day, you couldn't charge, as my mother used to tell me, you can't charge what people won't pay. If one company went up to $2 million for an engine, they wouldn't sell any.
Right.
But if everybody's at 1.1, 1.2,
And we're trying to, we're trying to keep our engines custom because that's what works for us. A certain water setup, a certain pump setup, the compartment's a certain way, so that it can be a rescue engine, so that it's, has the right tools and the right capacity for the highway, for accidents and
Well, when
all
you
the
say
things we
custom, it
respond to.
sounds like fancy, but if I remember, some of the custom was having 500 gallons versus 300 gallons.
Right. It's just having it set up, the seating configuration, the workmanship, some of that. Our engine and our ladder. So the ladder was purchased in 2018, or it is a 2018. The newest engine's a 2020. By the manufacturer that we purchased from, they're termed severe service. We think it's important to have another severe service vehicle because we need to get, 20-something years out of it.
But that's the key, really. It's not what you're putting it through, it's how it's lasting.
Right.
Because we got an extra 2 years out of this engine, because you had it budgeted for 2 years ago, and we
Right.
wait till October.
Right. And now, so we're coming into it in the fall. We'll be requesting an appropriation for another fire engine. It's time.
Yeah, and that's why we put in the Finance Committee report to town meeting members that we're pushing it off last October, but we can't push it off another year. So come this October, we must buy the new fire truck.
Right. Correct. And we were very fortunate in that one became available pretty much set up the way our 2020 model is set up. We just got really lucky. Otherwise, it's a 3-year wait. It's a 3-year build, and we can't wait 3 years. So, like I said, we were fortunate.
Now, one of the questions that came up when we were going over the capital is, why don't we have a rescue truck at Birch Street?
Right. Mike, Deputy Chief Dettori, and I believe that it's the right model to respond with for medicals. Instead of those short trips with an engine, more diesel, it's not good for the truck itself. We wanted to get into a rescue truck. And usually when we say we're purchasing one so that we can retire one, but in this case, with our 2018 that just was supposed to be retired, it would fill a nice slot at Birch Street and be able to take a workload. And then we would talk to the finance team about maybe purchasing one to run in this 2018's place at some point.
Well, when we had the meeting, it became obvious that I'd rather see you putting miles on a $150,000 vehicle versus a $1.2 million vehicle.
Right, and it's more agile, right? It's easier to maneuver in traffic. We all know what traffic is in town, right? 16, 109.
We have traffic?
So it's no secret, right? So by increasing the minimum staffing, which the finance team, the select board, everybody was so helpful in helping us to achieve that. By doing that, we're able to do a different response model. So, and the firefighters have worked with me on that and have bought in, and it's been really helpful.
Now, when you first proposed changing your staffing plan, there was some hesitation because it was a lot of money. How's it worked?
It has been, I can't say enough how pleased we are with how it's worked out. It took some time, right? So we were a little bit delayed, and the reason for that is working with civil service, because we're a civil service department, so we had to get the captain's positions approved, and all that takes time, right? In the negotiations and how it's going to work and what the job description is and things like that. So that's all the behind the scenes
But
stuff.
you weren't talking years.
No, we've been able to achieve it within roughly like about a year, right?
Yeah.
So, and the lieutenants at Birch Street now, it's been a great thing. Now I have supervisors, I have a captain and a lieutenant. The captain outranks a lieutenant, the captain works downtown at Spruce Street, and is the shift commander. And now, when we have 2 incidents, which does happen quite a bit, I have two supervisors, especially nights and weekends when the deputy chief and I are not there, the administrative captain's not there. It's worked out really well. And an offshoot of that is by increasing the staffing, we now always have two people on the ladder truck. It was a one-person vehicle.
That huge ladder truck was
That's-
driven by one person?
Driven and operated
I
by
mean,
one
driven
person.
and operated.
Right, both, right. So it's been really a great upgrade to have two people and to have that station be a four-person station.
Do we ever run into issues where we need help from outside?
The fire service survives on mutual aid.
I was going to say mutual.
So yes, we use our neighbors and our neighbors, utilize us too, right? It's necessary.
How often do we need to use mutual aid for
So-
Milford's benefit?
If we resource our ambulances, so if we use more ambulances than what are assigned to the town, obviously we have to call ambulances in.
Right.
So we use our neighbors all around us for that. Fire-wise, a building fire, we're automatically bringing neighboring towns, and when they have a fire, we're going to their town. It's reciprocal, and how often, tough to say, whenever there's an incident like that.
But on balance, it works itself out, right?
Yes.
It's not like we're giving 80% and taking 20%.
No, and for a long time, we were the takers, right?
Really?
We were because of brush fires. So we had so many for, every other year, or, we had so many incidents with brush that we'd be utilizing our neighbors quite a bit.
Yeah, I remember when they were talking about extending Camp Street. It sent shudders through our minds because every year we had the kids going up there,
Right.
setting their little campfires, which I don't know if they got out of control or whatever, but the firefighters had to go up into the woods to put them out.
Yeah, it's labor intensive, and it's a lot of work, and it really takes a toll on the equipment, the brush fires do, so.
Yeah, I remember when, I can't remember which Rev of Tui bought the Army chassis and the tanker.
Right. It's
Saved us $300-some thousand.
right.
And it was always funny because people say, well, how many miles are on that truck? You sit there and say, a mile driving up 495 is not the same as a mile driving in the brush.
Now, we still utilize an Army chassis or a military chassis. And we were able to, well, fortunately, a couple of years ago, we were able to get the grant for a brush tanker. So, and then our neighboring town, Medway, provided a brush vehicle to us for no cost.
Really?
And we have a brush truck from 2015. So our brush fleet is adequate. It's more than adequate.
Where do you keep all these brush trucks?
Mostly at Birch Street, right?
Oh, no wonder.
Three of them are at Birch Street, and one of the brush trucks is at Spruce.
Because as I say, when we drive by Spruce, it seems to be fully occupied.
Yes, but we make room, and make it work.
So the staffing now is pretty well set?
For now, yes. So we're running a minimum, we'll call it a minimum staffing of 7 firefighters and 2 officers. The officers are a captain and a lieutenant, and that's between the two firehouses. So, yes. So it's better.
Firefighters still working on the 24-hour rotation?
They do. So this morning, 8 o'clock this morning, the group started, and tomorrow morning at 8, they'll go off duty, and then the next group will come in.
Is there a concern that at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning, they're tired if they get called out?
There's always a concern for needing rest, right? But we're used to this schedule. Worked this schedule for a lot of years. I think since the late '90s. So I think everybody's well adjusted to what's required to respond in a 24-hour model.
Is that optimal for the firefighter or for the town?
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, I'll be honest with you, it's a great schedule to work. I no longer work that schedule, right? But
You're
the,
24/7.
right. So,
Sorry, you've been demoted to chief. Now you get to work every day, every hour.
and keep that phone with you. So, but I think it benefits both because there was some cost savings associated with transitioning to a 24-hour shift because of holiday pay and things like that. But it's a good response model, a good working model for the firefighters.
So now the firefighters are spending 70% of their time on medical. What extra training did you have to put into place?
So I'd say 99% of our firefighters are EMTs or paramedics. I do have a handful of paramedics, 5 of them. And then they are able to perform some skills when the ambulance service is with them, right? So they're able to work off of that license. It's just an agreement that we have. So I do have a few paramedics that are able to work with community EMS's equipment.
Now, is it the license, Mark, or is it the infrastructure?
It's an ambulance service license.
So they're trained, they know what to do, but they don't have the license.
No. So the paramedics are trained Massachusetts paramedics, right? They're certified. But we don't have advanced life support equipment in the fire department.
Well, that's what I mean, the infrastructure, when the ambulance rolls up, they're bringing a bunch of tools that aren't available?
Correct. We're a basic life support service in the fire department, and the ambulance is an advanced life support service.
Because that's always been a question that people raise, is to say, we had our neighborhood picnic and a kid fell off the wall. They called 911. Within minutes, a Milford fire truck was there. And, you know, it made me feel a lot more comfortable knowing that it was a Teddy DiPaolo, it was a Scotty Marshall. You know, you saw faces that you knew, that you trusted. And I got to admit, my tension level went down.
Right.
It shouldn't have. I should trust that strangers are just as trained, but it's human nature.
How we have it set up with community EMS, who's the ambulance provider, is that they have, we'll call it dedicated staff, right, that are assigned to Milford. And they actually mirror our 24-hour shifts so that the same paramedics are working with the same firefighters. We try to do that to have that rapport and so that everybody works well in the field, and you're used to working with each other, you know each other, and it's not, at a call, it's not the first time I'm seeing you. They develop friendships and good working relationships. So it's important, and it helps in service delivery, helps in patient care, I believe. So community EMS has been a great provider for us.
Now, the ambulance service had we had an RFP recently.
Recently, so in the winter, we released an RFP, request for proposal for ambulance service.
Why'd you go so soon?
I wanted to make sure we had enough time, if there was a transition that was going to be needed, that we had enough time for, to work out all the particulars. Garaging, right? So I don't have room in the fire stations for ambulances from a private provider. So we have to make sure that there's enough time to find garaging and to work out a contract and things like that. So we had an opportunity to increase the amount of paramedics that are on duty for the town of Milford. Right now, there are 3 paramedics on duty 24/7. We had an opportunity to go back to the way that it used to be, which was 4 paramedics on duty. And so we took that opportunity, and we named Coastal EMS our new provider. That transition's happening. It probably won't be complete until early fall.
Now, they will have a paramedic on duty.
They will provide the town, again, we're still working on the contract, but what the proposal requires, they will give 2 dedicated advanced life support ambulances, each staffed by 2 paramedics, to the town. So that's what we'll have covering for our medical needs.
24/7.
24/7.
And that's always the thing that's hard to grip, is that when we talk about, when you said you wanted to add one person, it really means adding 4 firefighters.
That would be optimum for the town, because when you add one firefighter, I'm really only benefiting one group, which is
One shift.
25% of the response group, right?
And you can't have a memo that said fires and emergencies will only
Only
occur.
on that day? No.
What's the incentive for a firefighter to become a paramedic?
So so I have paramedics, but they came to Milford as paramedics. They didn't train here to become
okay.
paramedics. So there's not a real salary increase for them. It's not, we don't have an advanced life support service, so it's not something that we're looking to evolve into right now. Like I said before, so I gained 5 because they came here from other municipalities where they were paramedics. So
Doesn't hurt anything.
absolutely not. No, it's a higher level of care, and like I had mentioned, they are able to work with the ambulance provider to use their skills. Just we don't have the equipment for it, so they're able to help as a paramedic the other paramedics that are on scene.
Does it make sense to keep the ambulance separate from the fire department?
Well, for us, right now, we get 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We're going to have 2 paramedic ambulances staffed with 4 paramedics, and it's 0 cost to the town. So, the town pays for the fire department, right, through taxes.
Yep.
But if we were to operate the ambulance and make it a fire-based ambulance, we'd have to hire more people. They would have, we'd have to transition to a paramedic service, and there's a lot of capital outlay there. And right now, with the hospital in town, there's no reason to transition to that when we're getting that type of service for no charge to the town. It's philosophical, right? So there may be some that say yes, we should have it, some that say no, we shouldn't. But this model has worked for us for decades, right? So we're not proposing to change it. We're just and we think the service works well, and so we're going to continue with it.
Now, we had a non-budgeted article come out, PFAS-free gear. What was that about?
So cancer is really impacting the fire service across the nation, and it's really impacted us. I mean, you mentioned Ted DiPaolo.
Teddy.
I can go down the line and name firefighters that are fighting cancer now, retirees, active members, those that have passed away. I mean, it's really impacted Milford. So we'll just look within Milford, right? We know it's a nationwide problem, but we learned a lot. We learned that PFAS it doesn't come off your skin easily, and it's a forever chemical, right? So in simplest terms, it's bad for us, and it's in our gear, the very protective equipment that we're using to enter fires, enter buildings. It's doing damage to us like the carcinogens do in a fire. So the select board, the union proposed to get PFAS-free gear. The select board was receptive. The finance team, the finance committee, met with us and listened to why we need it. And this town rallied around, town meeting, and the support that we get was incredible, and rallied around buying this, a bulk purchase, so that all the entire department will have PFAS-free gear. It's incredible, right? So probably, I mean, we just all got sized because it's custom fit. And I'd say within about, I would say 12 weeks, we're going to have PFAS-free gear. And just like that. And I say thank you to town meeting, thank you to FinCom, thank you to the select board. Like I said, worked with the union proposed it. And it was just one big team effort, and we can't say thank you enough.
Well, it's kind of hard to say, we want you to risk your lives. You run that way into the fire so we can run this way, but we're not going to supply you with the tools you need. I mean, I don't think anybody could turn around and say it's a bad decision.
No, we just didn't know what we didn't know, right? Years ago, we were purchasing, turnout gear, pant and coat that we thought was state of the art, right?
Well, it was back then.
Right? And no one was the wiser. And now we're finding out, through the stories of other firefighters of, what they're dealing with cancer, and it's linked back to the gear. And it's, and I know there's there's law now that's coming into effect that's going to not allow that to be sold, if I read it correctly. But it's really important to us.
It's funny because I get criticized for saying, I don't care what the law is. I care what's right. Whether or not we were obligated, because we weren't under any obligation to buy the PFAS.
No.
But it's our families. It's Milfordians risking their lives for us. It's the right thing to do.
Right. But we appreciated the support at the within
Yeah.
the legislature and the governor to
Well,
make
no,
it
I understand why they have to make it a law, because there's going to be other towns that may not have the same philosophy. And you don't want them putting their firefighters at risk.
right. So
Seems like every so many years, what was it, about 3-4 years ago, was the fancy wash machines?
yes, we have an extractor at each fire station now, firehouse, yeah, and along with dryers. So now when the gear is contaminated through incidents, we're able to properly clean it, right, and dry it so that it's
Ready for use again.
exactly. So when that happens, the firefighters will have to use their PFAS gear, right? Not the PFAS free, in the short term until their new
Yeah,
gear
but you
is ready.
reduce 90% of the
Yes.
exposure.
Right. So
Now, a lot of the PFAs and PFOAs came from firefighting foam.
yes,
What's happening with, I mean, it's great that we're doing the turnout gear, but we don't want to expose our people to the PFAS in the foam.
right.
What are we doing about the foam?
So we purchase environmentally friendly. It's called green foam now. So the fire engines that carried foam, we had those apparatus cleaned, right, by a company, a hazardous waste company. So they basically, as best they could, cleaned out the tanks and took away all that foam, and we replaced it. So we did that a few years ago now. So our foam no longer has the
PFAs and
the
PFOAs.
forever chemicals.
I mean, realistically, you think about them, they're DDT in a different form.
Yes,
When we grew up, DDT was the best insecticide because it was totally non-polar. It got absorbed by the fat layers and stayed forever and killed the neurological reaction of the insects.
right.
It was the best insecticide there was, till we figured out that the birds ate the insects, the animals ate the birds, people ate the animals, and here we go again.
And that's what's difficult with the chemicals. So you think that, okay, I wore my gear, I perspired a lot, I really worked that gear, and the chemicals came off and they're on my skin, and I'll just take a shower and it'll just come off and it'll be no problem. And it's just not that easy.
Well, no, because you're sweating, the oil off your skin is a natural diluent for the PFAS
Right.
because it's nonpolar, the oils are nonpolar. The water will get rid of some, but taking a simple shower isn't going to be enough.
Right.
You have to eliminate the PFOAs and the PFAs from the beginning.
So we're really going to be able to protect our newer firefighters, so which is great.
And the older ones too.
Right. I think some of us have been wearing that PFAS gear for a long time, but it's still we won't be anymore, or unless we absolutely have to because we had an incident and our gear's out of service for 24 hours.
And in 5 years, there'll be something else. And Milford will rally around the cause again.
Right.
I mean, it's just a fact of life.
Yeah, but we have incredible support. We really do. From budget, in doing this staffing change for us was, we really needed it, but the buy-in was incredible. It really
Well, what was the biggest changes that the staffing change brought?
Well, two things. So the supervisors, Birch Street never had a shift officer on duty, so it was firefighters. So nights and weekends, it was the firefighters. 3 firefighters generally were together there, and the person that's supposed to make decisions and be in charge of an incident, the lieutenant, well, that person was at Spruce Street. So it was a split squad, right? And that's just not efficient. And in the amount of runs that we're doing, we needed to change. And the leaders of this town, elected and appointed officials, allowed us to change. And we made a big step. That was a big turnaround for us. And then adding that person to the ladder truck, that second person, was, one person responding on a call, it's just not adequate. It's not safe. But we were doing it because we were making do, right? We're doing what
But
we
what
had
does
to
that
do.
second person do? I mean, you see on TV that there's a guy in the back driving the back of the truck.
Well, we don't have
But
that kind of
I
truck.
was going to say, but those trucks aren't in Milford.
They're not. A tractor-drawn aerial is what it's known as. We don't have those. But that right now, the lieutenant at Birch Street rides on the ladder truck with the driver. So those two people go together. Now, I talked about cross-staffing. We cross-staff. So if there's a motor vehicle accident on 495 and everybody's in that firehouse, those 4 people go on the fire engine, and we leave the ladder truck out of service. It's an operational decision. It's just more efficient. Send 1 vehicle, 4 people, they're a team, and that's how we do it. If, like I said, with Rescue 3, responding with 2 firefighters, it leaves 2 firefighters back that can meet Rescue 3 at some point, or the other station.
How often do you use the ladder truck?
That ladder truck responds on calls daily. Daily, because I don't know if I get an alarm in a commercial building or in a residential, a multifamily, I don't know if it's a fire or not. There's been plenty of instances where we've received an alarm from an alarm company, and you're getting a phone call. It says there's an alarm at such and such an address. We don't know if it's a fire, so we don't go check it out and then call for more people. We just treat it as it is a fire. It's a fire until proven otherwise, right? So it responds daily to calls.
How do you get that truck around Milford with the traffic that we're facing?
A lot of training. A lot of training, a lot of driver training, right? That truck is out of the station every day in the morning. It's operated, the jacks are deployed, the aerial is moved in different positions, and it's driven, right? So they have to be proficient with it. It's a technical piece of equipment, and they have to be comfortable with it. So the firefighters train on it every day.
Yeah, I remember when we were up putting a wreath on the monument at the Heights, one of the engines came by. And of course you get the curiosity, what's up? And they said, new driver, we're training him.
Right.
And that made sense, that you get somebody used to driving in the Heights, Luby Ave, the Plains, So when it comes down to a real emergency,
Right.
they're already familiar.
It's, the vehicles are large, right? And now, I think we all realize what the traffic is, especially with the bridge being closed on Central Street. We have to take our time, and, you know, we're doing nobody any good if we don't arrive at the incident. So it's very important to be safe and you know, use your training, take your
How
time.
high does that ladder service?
So it depends how far it is from a building,
Oh.
right? It's all angles, but it's
But is it
it's
3
109
floors?
feet. It's 109 feet.
So how many floors could that,
Well, it depends how far away it is.
but on
It's
average,
positioned
is it?
from the building. Like I said, it depends on how, so if I position you know, the truck,
But is it 7
50
floors?
well, maybe if I put it right next to the building at a very steep angle.
But it'd be 5?
Yeah, 5, should do.
What's the tallest building in Milford?
The hospital, right? Or the hotel, one of the hotels.
And how tall are they?
Well, the hospital depends which side you approach from, right? But that would be our biggest challenge, would be the hospital for,
But 5 flight reach is enough to take care of all the buildings in Milford.
this ladder can service the buildings in town, yes. It just depends on, like I said, it depends on positioning, really, how far away you are and what that angle, because sometimes it's not height, sometimes it's reach, all right? We want to build a reach. You know, the garden-style apartments that we have, you know, if you're in the street, you want to be able to get to the roof, but you want to build a reach from the street, and sometimes it's quite a distance.
So we've got engine trucks, which are pumpers, water,
Yes, we have 4 of those.
4 of those. All in service?
2 are frontline, 1 is a reserve, I'd say, a reserve piece that is ready to respond if the other 2 are tied up. So we use off-duty response, right? We talked about mutual aid, but if I have an incident where the duty crew is going to be committed for a period of time, we'll call firefighters from home.
Oh, okay.
They'll come to the firehouse.
So
They'll staff
the
that
third
reserve.
engine could roll
Right.
when needed.
Yes. And then I have a 4th when I have one out for service that I can.
Yeah, well,
Roll into
we ran
service.
into it years ago when you had an engine out for 4 or 5 weeks.
Right. Sometimes longer. Depends.
Yeah, you can't go to Charlie's auto shop and have them fix engines.
So we use a variety of repair shops, and as long as they're, you know, it depends on what the issue is. If it's a diesel issue, like an engine issue,
Well, then it's
No.
more common.
right. But if it's a more, I don't know, centered around a fire engine problem, then I go to a fire engine vendor.
So
Right.
the pumpers, the engines, pump water, answer medical calls. Is that their
If they
basic?
have extrication equipment for motor vehicle accidents, right?
Okay. Then you have the ladder truck,
Yes.
which you're going to roll when you know it's a fire and you need reach.
Right, it rolls regardless, right? So our response for a structural type call like that is a rescue truck, it's 2 engines, and it's a ladder. And I run those 4 pieces between the 9 people that are on duty,
The third one is the rescue truck.
yes.
So that's a souped up pickup truck?
It is. It is. It's, and it's real cost effective. So if you remember, when Chief Bill Toohey and I, he proposed it, right? But we worked on it together. That was a pilot, kind of a pilot program, right? We always had a rescue truck that was, I'd say, cost more, and it was more set up like, it was a larger truck. We wanted to go with a different model, maybe more cost-effective, gasoline-powered versus diesel, because we were having problems with diesels and turbos that were failing and things like that. So this model worked out so well, we just got another one. And maybe next year we'll be asking for even another one.
Well, the capital subcommittee suggested you do.
Right.
And again, just for the idea of If you're gonna put miles on a $150,000 truck, makes more sense than putting miles on $1 million truck.
Oh, yes. We used to chuckle like, a ladder truck, $1 million. Wow, that's a lot of money. Now a ladder truck, we're looking over two,
Oh, God.
right?
Well, that ladder truck is why we set up the second short term, any term.
I remember.
I remember Shano and I looked at each other and said, this dang truck's going to cost $1 million. We better start saving. And we set up this, not stabilization account, but this alternate stabilization account, so we could put $250,000 a year away and save up for the truck.
We might have to start doing that for engines.
Yeah, I was going to say, when you
It's not
start
funny,
talking,
but it's frustrating, and the time that it takes to build them too. But it's what we're all up against. It's not just exclusive.
so
to
we got
Milford.
one ladder truck.
Right.
Do we have a backup ladder?
We do not.
I didn't think so. 4 engines. How many rescue trucks? 2?
Well, we really have 3, but one we're using as just a utility vehicle right now. It costs us nothing to get it, so besides,
Well,
and
that's
now it just
always-
costs maintenance.
That's always the piece that say, well, when we buy a new one, we're going to trade in the old one. But when you look, I remember you get about 32 cents, $32.80 trade-in, because everybody knows these fire trucks are ridden hard.
Yes, I mean, short trips, turn it on and go, right? So there's not a lot of waiting, and
And you don't want to take a chance that you start it up and it doesn't go.
true. But we maintain our equipment, so we really utilize that maintenance budget, and the trucks get a lot of service, at least twice a year for PM, and then anything else that goes wrong. So they're well maintained.
Well, that's good to hear, because years ago you heard the problems in large cities like Boston when they weren't really maintaining them the way they should.
Yeah, we can't take a chance with things like that. So
911, I'm sorry, our truck broke down.
right. But we do want to take some of the workload off of these engines. Cost is one factor, but also, I mean, you want it to last, right? And you want to be efficient. So that's why we kind of changed the model. But what helped us to do this new response model with 2 rescues is the staffing. If I don't have the staffing, it's very difficult. It wouldn't be able to do the second rescue. It just wouldn't.
Well, you
be able to
mentioned
happen.
during the subcommittee meeting that we don't buy a standard, I don't know if you call it chassis or rig for the engine, that we're getting the heavy-duty version.
Right. We think it's real important to stay with that, as opposed to a stock vehicle that's not constructed the way that we want our engine to be constructed. I told you that we had opted for severe service. We think that's an important characteristic of a fire engine, because we need the longevity. I can't come back in 10 years and say I need another
Another $1 million truck?
Well, to replace the one I just got 10 years ago, right? I need to go through the whole, the one that we're going to replace right now, engine 1, is a 2001. So if we didn't have the opportunity to purchase this custom vehicle that just became available, it'd be 3 more years. So we'd be looking, that truck would be, whatever, 20, 28, 27 years old, 28 years old by the time we were able to take delivery of a new engine. So
Yeah, but even if you put aside it's the right thing to do, you could financially justify it, saying if you get 2 or 3 extra years out of the truck, how many hundreds of thousands of dollars is you saving?
right.
I mean, we do it because you said it's the right thing to do and it's safer. But if I didn't care, if I was pure accounting, sorry accountants, by going a little bit extra in price, if I'm getting an extra 3 or 4 years out of it, how much is that worth?
Right. We feel the build is really important, right? So Another factor is all these emission changes that are happening. So, we wanted to be, by buying or by having the opportunity to get appropriated in the fall for this engine that became available, allowed us not to have to buy the first edition of the new motor that's coming out that hasn't even been built yet. It's going to be required to be put in these new fire engines. That's what we learned. So this engine that became available to us that matches our specification for the most part.
Now that's a scary movie.
Yeah.
The last thing in the world I want is, I won't say the prototype, but
But it is.
it is. I mean, I can test, when we design equipment, we put it through everything possible, and then it gets in the field and say, how did that happen?
So we experienced this on a smaller scale, I'd say, in around 2007 with engine 3, with the diesel particulate filter and this new regen system for the diesel motors to make them run cleaner. We got the first edition. We're not happy that we got the first edition. It wasn't great. It wasn't a great experience. So when the opportunity came to purchase, or to perhaps, if we, like I said, if we get the money, if we are appropriated, town meeting votes favorably, it's going to be it'll be the engine that we're accustomed to without any changes, and we're able to, to get what we're familiar with, and we know what works. And we're not concerned about the new technology and how that's going to affect us for downtime and stuff like that.
Now, Scotty came to us with a warning that he's starting to face this electric push, that he's starting to get worried that he's going to be forced to buy electric trucks. And his concern was, well, they go for 6 hours, then you have to shut them down and recharge them. Is any of that silliness come over yet?
I'm not hearing that for us right now. Electric, they are available. I've seen them. I know Los Angeles has, the bigger cities have.
Well, when
have
you got
one.
20 ladders and
Right.
50 engines, you can have one or two sitting there being charged.
Right. But I'm not aware of a push for that for us right now, and that just would not be it wouldn't be a responsible purchase for us right now.
No, that's a scary movie when Scotty started talking about it, saying, middle of a snowstorm, I'm sorry, I can't plow Main Street because I'm charging for 3 hours.
Right. I don't know enough about the advances in the technology with the batteries and things like that right now. I haven't researched it because it's not something we're interested in.
Thank God.
In purchasing right now. Now, if we're mandated to at some point, then we'll address it when that time comes.
What is the biggest challenge you think you're going to face in the next year?
Believe it or not, I think we've hit a challenge with hiring, and it's kind of funny. It's just our pool of candidates has really decreased. So we're, like I had mentioned, we're a civil service department. So there's an entry-level exam that's given every October now, statewide firefighter test, right? So we belong to that. We hire through civil service. We promote through it, through civil service. And I am in the process of hiring 2 firefighters right now, replacement positions, right? I had retirements. And I had 5 applicants, or 5 candidates. 5. It's unheard of. When I got hired, when and my friends got hired, 30 years ago.
Used to be people would fight to...
Yes, and it's not like that anymore. And
Why?
I don't know if it's that the job is, or this career is not attractive, or if we're not marketing it well, or if it was after COVID where people didn't want to do the medical calls. I'm not sure what the answer is.
I hadn't thought about the fact that you're doing 70% of your work is medical.
Right.
So by definition, you're not going to the healthiest people.
No, we help people that are sick and that are injured, right? But I don't know what the answer is for that. Civil service is trying to help with something called a local register. I would just have to, and I'm going to look into it, I would just have to have some agreements in place to hire differently, right? To hire people that maybe aren't on the civil service list. It's just a different method of hiring. But I'm almost at the non-residence list, and that's unheard of for Milford, right? So we'll be looking at some options down the road, but that's probably the biggest challenge, and we're not the only ones that are facing this
I was going to
challenge.
ask, is it Milford facing it, or is,
No.
I mean, for a while, military, police, when we were going through this whole upheaval of, defund the police, defund the military, defund everything, but that seems to have gone away.
Yes.
Did the firefighters get caught up in just association, or?
I don't believe so. I really don't know what the answer is right
It just
now.
seems wild to me, because when I was growing up, it was fight tooth and nail to get on the list, or the short list of Milford firefighters.
It was fractions of points that separated you from a career, and now it's not like that.
Do most people who start off as Milford firefighters stay?
Yes. Very rarely do firefighters transfer out of Milford, so they usually spend their career
So it's
here.
not something that says, I don't want to work for Milford, but I want to be a firefighter.
Yeah,
Because if it was,
I
they'd
mean,
transfer out.
right. Sometimes, I have, on occasion, there may be a firefighter that's looking to get to a city department, right, or something like that. But for the most part, the people that are hired here remain here and spend their career here.
Well, that's a tribute to you, the deputy chief, and everybody that came before you in management.
I always say this is a great town to work for. And again, I might be biased, but I've worked other places, and I know how good it is here.
Well, from everybody that I know, thank you for what you do. Pass our regards on to the deputy chief and the whole staff for being there when we need them.
I certainly will. No, thank you.
That's, like I say, I never talk about the fire department, I hope never use the fire department, but the day we needed the fire department, they were there within minutes. So thank you.
Thank you.
And to our 6 loyal viewers, thanks for joining. May tomorrow be a better night than tonight. May God bless. And let's just hope that we keep getting the services, the response, the loyalty that our firefighters keep giving us. Because that's something that the town has to earn on our side, not just on the firefighters' side. Good night, all.
Not too long since I've been home. Been running all my life just